This is my dear friend Karami, and she's going to share some things about liberty with us. When I asked her to help with this project and share some of her resources, ideas, things that have worked in the past, things that are inspiring her, she said, you know, I've been out on my porch swing this morning reading all about 2 Nephi chapter 1, where Lehi basically says the covenant land promises in a nutshell. So I'm going to leave you to read that on your own, 2 Nephi chapter 1. But Karami, thanks for sharing with us your favorite stuff.
I love the cause of liberty, and I love the freedom to be able to educate my children the way that God inspires me to educate. And there was one year in particular where we really focused on understanding liberty, personal freedoms, and that was a year where we decided to take the United States and divide it into 5 regions and take some trips. And I like to be really prepared for the trips that we take. And we do that by learning together. And so it was our whole family learning together. And I guess what I mean by that is my kids that were in school. And my husband did come with us on the trips, but I didn't wait for him to do the teaching about these things. But our very first region that we focused on was the Northeast. And we studied the Revolutionary War, and we studied poets of the Northeast before we went on our trip. And of course, geography. We studied geography and everything. But one of the things that we did is I took a map. Each one of my kids had a map. I think that we got this from like Rainbow Resources or something. And every kid had a map. And as we learned about the country or the states in the Northeast, they would fill this in. And we started a little game with William Tell's Overture, the one and they had to fill they had to fill this out and try and beat the time. And so my older kids were learning the states and capitals, my younger kids were just learning the states, but they would write it in. And of course, we just started with the Northeast, which was small, but they work up to it, and then we kept adding as we added regions. But anyway, it was a fun way to recognize that the United States of America is bigger than just where we are. There are more experiences than just our experience, and that we're all connected in our heritage of liberty, of people who left something to come in search of liberty. And it's interesting because that's exactly what it says in 2 Nephi, that God will move people and bring them here who are searching for liberty. And it doesn't end there, because where it goes next is that if those people who he brings don't remember, then he'll bring a new people, because the land is special and covenant. And so we have to do our best to teach our children the importance of holding on to that liberty that our ancestors sought for. In teaching them about the regions that year, we had these little books, and we had these maps in here, and there you can see that this is the Northeast. So we just did some map work, but this isn't the magic. The magic isn't in just the work, but the filling out the states and coloring them, and then talking about each individual state, and a little bit about them and about their geography and their state bird and their flag. And but the interesting thing is that the flags do have a story. They have a reason why that certain geographical region came together under those ideals. And that's so important for kids to understand, that we come together not because we're all the same, not because everything is better that way in this one certain place, like we come together in this place because they have great blueberries or something. It's not like that. We come together under ideals. And what are those things? What are those unifying things that bring people together across race and gender and age? And what are those ideals? And a lot of times you can find those things in their flags. So this was a really fun thing that we got to, that just helped us. It was a way to have those conversations, because sometimes you ask somebody that question, you know, well, what are some ideals that bring us together? I mean, I might not even know, but when you start talking about, you know, I live in Idaho, so let's talk about the Idaho flag. What is on the Idaho flag, and why? What do the people in Idaho care about, you know? And as we talk about that, it gives us the basis for understanding these ideals, and then as a complete country, you know, how we could come together and what ideals we come together under, and not just us, also all the people of God. And I think that's something, there is educating kids, but there's also educating mom. There's educating me, because I can't give my kids something that I don't have. And something, a book that I have been reading, I actually haven't finished it, but America, Imagine a World Without Her, and it is written by, the author is from India. And he talks about why he came here, and what, you know, this summer, my kids do 4-H, and that is a really good resource for me, where we talk about service to our community, our club, our community, our country, and our world. That we have a responsibility to those things, and that you know, we say the 4-H pledge after we say the pledge of the the Pledge of Allegiance, and talk about the United States. And I read to the kids in our 4-H group a piece of this book that talked about what it was like in India for him, and how he didn't have choice. Liberty was limited, and how important liberty is, not just here, but for the world, like what liberty does for the world, and what the example that we can set, because we already have this in motion, and how important it is for us to not let go of it, because once it can be taken from us a little bit at a time, kind of like Lahontai, who was poisoned by degrees. We can have little snippets of our liberty taken from us, and we almost don't even recognize, or we pass it off as, well, it's kind of a state of emergency right now, or, you know what, I'm too busy to think about it, so I'm just not going to worry about that's happening, because nothing big will happen, right? If something big happens, I'll handle it. But we have to realize that little freedoms are always important, and that we need to, and it's not just important in my everyday life, but in the world. It makes a difference to have some standard of liberty, and that this covenant land is it. One of the things that we did, another resource, I guess, that I wanted to talk about is there's a school called Latter-day Learning, or Family School, and I only bought a couple months worth to do brief sections of it. I know some people use the entire curriculum. I like to do my own curriculum a lot of the time, so I like to take snippets of things. But one thing that we did is when we studied the Revolution, we had lessons every day from this family school. It's Latter-day Learning, and my kids remember this one game so much, and it is, we had these little cards, and they were all the different taxes that were imposed on, you know, the Intolerable Act and the Stamp Act and the Tea Act, right? It was just like a matching game. So you had two of them that said Tea Act and, you know, whatever. And so we're just playing a little matching game. And I gave all the kids some candy. And we don't eat a lot of candy at my house, so it was kind of a big deal. And the best part was, it was actually my birthday, and my neighbor had brought candy, and I was going to use marbles. But my neighbor brought me some candy for my birthday.
Just walked in the door.
Just walked in the door. This is how God works.
No coincidence.
And yeah, and so I'm like, oh, here, because I'm not going to eat the candy. So here, we'll divide this out. Now everybody has candy, and we start flipping over and finding the matches, right? Well, when they got a match, I said, oh, look at you. That is so special. What a special paper you have. Now you have to buy a stamp for that, and it costs one candy. So when they got when they got the match, they had to pay something. They had to pay me a piece of their candy. And I said, okay, so, and this game is in their curriculum. And then you say, okay, so I'm making a new family rule that anybody who lives on this side of the house has to give, 2 pieces of candy. And then, every time somebody got a match, I would make a new family rule. That person would have to pay for a stamp, and then I would make a new family rule. From now on, we can only shop at this one store. Nothing else. Well, what about this? And what about this? I can't get that there. Well, too bad. That's our new family rule. We can't shop there. Or if you have to pay for the number of windows that are in your bedroom. So if you have 2 windows, you have to pay 2 pieces of candy. If you have 1 window, you have to pay 1 piece of candy, like that. And it was really, they felt really like they were imposed on, and it felt really unfair. And so by the time we were done, they had a really good basis of understanding why the colonists felt the way they did. All of a sudden, they could empathize with that feeling. And for my kids, that was years ago. I'm thinking it was probably 4 or 5 years ago when we did that, but they still remember that and how frustrated they were that they would say to me, but mom, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm making all the rules. You don't have a say, and they got that idea of, no taxation without representation and the other things, like just the idea of how having the freedom to shop where you want, where the things are that you want, and that sort of thing. So that is a resource that you might want to look into. Like I said, I only, for about 6 weeks I used that curriculum, and you buy it by the month, and so I bought my 2 months, used what I had, and moved on. So that is really what I guess I wanted to say in a nutshell is, first of all, embrace the liberty that you have to educate your children. Secondly, educate yourself. These are some books that, I've loved. There are a lot of other ones. I didn't even get out all of the ones, but things that just gave me food for thought. This one is really, it's a lot about George Washington. It helps you understand what a statesman is and what a statesman does, and how you become that, and be able to inspire your children to be that person who defends liberty. The third thing is educating your kids in fun ways, like sitting them down and trying to have a conversation about liberty might not be the easiest thing to do, but when you say, yeah, we're gonna turn on this and have a race against this song, to fill in the things, and then talk about, look how big that is, what unites all of us, or like I said, the state flag, or whatever it is that you're however you're studying that, drawing in those questions when you give them a little bit of background, something to think about already. And it's really, liberty is worth educating about, so that we can understand if it ever goes away, and have the courage to do something about it.